Alright, I believe this is the correct layout. I'm gonna continue the main story. Or not main story, the main story. I've already caught up to all of it. I meant to say, I'm gonna continue the desert story. And I swear I'll complete the R&R one of these days, because those 4-star craftables are too damn good. Too damn useful not to have. More weapons is better, always. I know that at this point I won't gain anything anymore from holding my normal fates. But I'm still gonna wait until the banner.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Why No One Plays. It's been a while since the last one, and that's mainly because of the fact that, well, I've gone over just about every unpopular character worth mentioning up until this point. Mind you, there's still a few here and there, but I wanted to start covering other topics to keep stuff interesting. That being said, I still have a few to wrap up, and of course, as time goes on and new units are released at No One Plays, I'll keep the series updated. But for now, we're going to talk about everyone's favorite, almost but not quite a Knight of Favonius yet. Well, I know we're 12 episodes in, and by now the disclaimer is really not all that necessary, but just in case no one are watching and thinking I'm about to trash on them for playing her, this is not a personal attack. The goal of Why No One Plays is to discuss characters in video games who are unpopular to use by the general player base, analyzing what factors in their design or general circumstance cause the majority of people to not try them out. It's also to give some more exposure to the character by showing you what they're exactly about, so that maybe some of you can address those problems and find a new character. It's a long disclaimer, I know, but I just hope people don't take the title too literally. With that out of the way, time to get started. As the featured character of the Beginner's Wish banner and the introduction to Genshin's gacha system, Noelle is the first character.
Wait, Xinyan's thing is pink?
To start out this game, which means virtually all of us have tried her out for at least a short while for the first 10 adventure rank levels or so. Although I think I speak for most when I say her usage doesn't last her very long once players get their hands on more units, notably 5 stars. Early on in the game's lifespan, overall sentiments on her were that she was a reliable and serviceable unit, capable of handling just about any situation that players would come across at the time. She was more or less the only true defensive support in the game, and therefore had no competition. On release, Genshin's character selection was sparse. There were only 2 playable Geo units at the time.
I discovered a funny idea and I want to try it.
Ningguang was supposed to occupy the DPS slot for Geo while Noelle was a tank. Given how primitive and underdeveloped the meta was at this point, everyone was under the impression that every character was perfectly viable to some extent. I actually remember the early tier lists of Genshin ranking Bennett as B tier and Noelle as A. But as many of you know by now, player perception of the roster has evolved substantially, and units previously thought of as
so the team involves Candace.
What's wrong? Are you in danger?
And then Xiangling.
I can't wait any longer!
And yes, it is exactly what you think it is.
Unfortunately for Noelle, her situation belonged in the latter category. Something interesting about her that I find very reminiscent of Yanfei is that Noelle has a very fervent player base, as in, if you do play her, have a rather high opinion of her strengths and weaknesses as a whole. And it's not even just gameplay, she's the only unit in the game to have 2 hangout events, so even Toyo themselves appear to take a liking to her, and I can definitely see why.
Yeah, they're very based.
It says that she's somehow capable of being everywhere at once and performing any task given to her, earning her the moniker of Wonder Maid. And everyone more or less has nothing but positive things to say about her. This
yeah, Ganyu's good.
Of that one character in almost every anime who doesn't particularly stand out in any way, but there's someone you can trust and would make a really good friend, which ironically works to her detriment. Even before we get into her gameplay, Noelle as a character is by all accounts a normal person in the context of this game. If there's one thing anime is famous for, it's their very fantastical and sometimes unrealistically outlandish characters, and appearance or personality. Even in plain settings like high school, they're intended to be exaggerated or cartoony. I seriously doubt anyone's high school lives are even remotely close to what happens in Toradora or Kaguya-sama. I don't think any high school volleyball team is as extreme as IQ, nor do I believe a Ghost Rider slave is accurately portrayed in Violet Evergarden. Naturally, in a fantasy isekai setting, it's blatantly obvious that these characters are intentionally made to be very striking in appearance and have their own
4 piece again.
That's what makes them so unique.
Of the pyro set.
Believing nuns in real life look like this. contrast, Noel's personality.
We wish they were. They look like that.
Almost every main fetish, which to her credit, a lot of weeks do. But I think
Nice.
you know what I mean. She's a very inconspicuous character. Pleasant to get to know, I'm sure, but unremarkable by enemy standards. This distinction carries over into how she performs in combat as well. Geo Element places an emphasis on sheer brute force.
I'm gonna keep farming for this for now.
And Noelle was the first of her kind. To figure out how she uses defense to her
Get artifact for some reason still isn't part of the relinquished.
Breastplate inflicts a burst of geo damage to surrounding opponents while creating shield whose durability scales off of her defense. Additionally, while active, Noelle's normal and charge attacks have a percentage chance to heal her team for a portion of her defense. So both her shield strength and regeneration are influenced by her defense stat, which is already conducive to her surrounding ability. Since she has more mileage and ability defense than just about any unit in terms of just pure defense. As for her burst, Sweeping Tide is also a burst of geo damage to surrounding opponents, but under her skill augmented with survivability, she gains more offensive pressure from the skill. For 15 seconds after cast, she gains vastly more attack range, giving her arguably the best melee auto attack reach even to this day. Additionally, she gains increased attack based on her defense, and her normals are converted to geo damage that can't be overridden by any other elemental infusion, meaning she will still do geo damage while under the effects of, say, Venice Fantastic Voyage with Constellation 6. And it's not a small measly attack bonus either. At level 13, the conversion rate is 85%, and with Constellation 6, this is increased to 135. Optimal itemization of Noelle can push her attack stat to well over 6,000, and if you layer party skills on top of one another, the results are staggering to say the
Holy
least.
shit!
I'm starting to see the reason why they call her the Wonder Maid. Going off on her skill and burst alone, it seems
How?
like she's got an equal balance of power and resilience, not uncommon in Genshin's roster, and certainly not among her fellow G units. There are several characters well sought after for their ability to
I see everything.
months, so this should be
You
seen as possible.
are not welcome
Let's see what else she has. Her two
Let's
passive
go
types
on.
are Devotion and Next to Green. For the former, if your active party member reaches dangerously low on health, they immediately
Quietly
shield
now.
for 4 times Noel's defense. Though since it has 150% damage absorption, it's more like 6 times her defense. I've seen some Noelles with about 4,000 defense. That's not half bad of a shield, all things considered. Definitely a nice safety cushion to have. For the latter, every 4 attacks decreases her breastplate's cooldown by 1 second, allowing her to have her shield up practically at all times. She really embodies the
Let me close some
tanky
stuff.
bruiser archetype in this scheme. At the time of making this video, there's not a single dungeon or enemy in the scheme whose damage outpaces the rate at which Noelle can maintain her shield, and not even the Rift Hounds, because remember, while breastplate is active, her auto attacks regenerate health for her entire team, canceling out the bleed. You'd be hard pressed to find a more unkillable team composition than Noelle. She has the potential to be incredibly strong in this mission.
Game's up. Fun's over. I'll protect us. Ready, steady, go!
Now!
Why does this always happen?
Now you're testing my patience. Well,
Everyone hold hands!
again.
All of her effective power hinges on how high her defense stat is, meaning you won't be able to get much out of her until later in her progression. Why this matters a lot, and I mentioned this once or twice before, is that in general, the mindset of most players is to achieve the highest reward for the lowest amount of effort and or time possible. Or in layman's terms, we're extremely lazy. I don't know how many people want to use quote that goes something along
We
the
like
lines
to
of,
maximize. We like
do a
to.
hard job because a lazy person will find an easy way to do it. That's how gamers are. They will only go the extra mile for something if there's verifiable proof that it progresses them further than any other option. Noelle demands an exorbitant amount of resources to reach her maximum potential, and even if you possess the wherewithal to get it to that point, you really only end up with just a meat stick, a lot of attack and defense, not much else. It's a lot of attack and defense, but it's still attack and defense. Now, utility in this game matters a lot more than intention, because most team compositions consist of ADS, sub-DPS, and just supports, or ADS and supports. So support characters pass on over each other's specific response instead of one.
You are not welcome.
Gotcha. Hey! The Temple of Wisdom! Let's dance! Time to go!
Did I seriously do that?
I'm getting sick of
That brings us back to the original problem.
What
We're
the fuck
healer.
was that?
In her defense, offensive support. While making her entire party nigh indestructible sounds like a pretty good deal. Much like Chi-Chi or Barbara, seldom do you run into a situation where you're taking so much damage that it warrants a dedicated tank or healer. In her defense, unlike Chi-Chi and Barbara, Noelle can convert that tankiness into damage without losing out on effectiveness. However, that brings us back to the original problem, where she needs extreme amounts of optimization just to compete with the quote-unquote meta units. And again, she doesn't exactly provide anything other than just damage and protection. For the sake of comparison, Fiona is also a shield and healer, but she provides elemental mastery, that and she's one of the cheapest ways to chain freeze by virtue of her element. It also doesn't help that there are so many characters in Genshin with party shields, so having a shield isn't a novel concept like it was back in version 1.0. In the offense department, her ridiculous attack stat is diminished by the element she belongs to. Geo as an element offers absolutely zero benefit to your combat pressure outside of its resonance enduring rock. So while she does have insane raw-based attack, she doesn't have Vaporize, Melt, or even 40% Elemental Shred from Swirl, as Geo doesn't interact with Anemo in any way. Going in more detail about that, in light of Geo being a very insular element, Noelle requires a very specific team composition to be effective. Geo units are well known for synergizing with one another. Odds are if you want to use Ito, Ningguang, or Noelle, you also might need Albedo, Zhongli, and Dorogoro well geared out. But that's really as far as you can go. This means if you don't have those units, you'll never be able to use Noelle to her fullest extent, as she's a main damage dealer on one of the worst elements to be a main damage dealer in. Not a lot of flexibility. That isn't to say that you can't make use of Vanish, Xianling, Xingqiu, or Superpulse, but it's nowhere near as effective as it is on any other damage dealer such as Yanfei. Many like to consider her as the Swiss Army knife of Genshin. She's a well-rounded type character with damage, she tends to play more using consistent damage with area coverage, and true to her in-game lore, she can accomplish any task you impose on her. Thing is, she's never the best choice for that task. If you need damage, there's a plethora of other choices with far less investment required. Do you need healing? Bennett or Tiona are better choices. Defense is her only shining virtue, but currently we don't need tanks in this game. Perhaps in the future, if Hoyo ever decides to ramp up enemy damage output, she might be useful in the future, but they don't seem to have any interest in doing that anytime soon. When it comes to gacha games, metas are formulated on the basis of specialization. It's far more practical to be good at one thing than to be average at a lot of things. That's why even if there are no established classes in Genshin, we as the community tend to compartmentalize characters into our own official classes, main DPS, sub-DPS, utility, what have you. And in every guide you see, there's obviously the top small optimal parties and formations for characters. For example, if you try to optimize Utah, she's a tactical nuke, as the goal is to make that tactical nuke even more tactical by throwing in conduits for Vaporize or Melt, reducing enemy defense, shredding resistances, maybe throwing a bit of regen to compensate for self-inflicted damage. The point being, use it simply with your team around a goal and do whatever you can to reach maximum efficiency. Even for the Raiden national team, widely thought of as the best all-purpose team in the game. To optimize it, people build more damage on Xianling, Xingqiu, and Bennett since you don't need that much energy recharge thanks to Shogun, whereas if you were putting any of those three characters on a different team comp, they would be occupying a different role. Make no mistake, you can count on Noelle to get the job done. She's not a bad character by any means, but she's forever a B-list actor, never an A-list if that makes sense. Honestly, that's every 4-star damage dealer. Beidou, Yanfei, Fischl, Ningguang, Noelle, they're never gonna hold a candle to the 5 stars. And frankly, they shouldn't, otherwise that would defeat the purpose of the variety of 5 stars. Fortunately for her, there is a silver lining. If you remember at the start of the video, I said that Noelle mains passionately believe their waifu is underrated, and surprisingly that praise isn't groundless. All of her problems mentioned thus far are circumstantial. Problem 1, she takes a lot of investment. Not to say you get lucky with a few defense artifacts. You have C6 armor from trying to go for 5 stars and to have decent weapon. Problem solved. Problem 2, her ability to make her team invincible, while not necessary, is an awesome use to have, especially if you run into more survival-focused domains instead of DPS checks in the future. Noelle could be a speculative investment. And finally, problem 3, you need specific units to use her efficiently. Well, if you have them, then there you go. And let's not forget the best part about her. While she needs a lot of gear, she's very easy to gear up. For every one good artifact you get, there's like hundreds of defense rolls. You obviously need 4-piece Husk and Redhorn Stone Thresher, but she has a lot of build options. Although, if you pull for Stone Thresher, there's a high chance you pull for Ito as well, and if you pull for Ito, there's not much of an incentive to invest in Noelle since she does less overall damage than him. That's just it. It's hard to really sell any of Noelle's virtues. Let's say you're trying to buy a car. You have one car for $50,000 and another for $60,000. Both cars are the same more or less, except the $60,000 one has, proximity sensors for the sake of argument. It would be nice to have that, but do you want to pay an extra 10 grand for it? Probably not. That's why being a generalist is more often than not a bad thing for a character, since players always want to have the best option for the cheapest price or the least amount of effort required. So they'll naturally go after the characters best suited for the job. Alternatively, you could be the best at everything like Kazuha or Shogun, but Noelle is a jack of all trades, master of none. I think that about wraps up everything I have to say about her, so we're gonna end it off here. Let me know if you have any thoughts on Noelle, or if you think I missed anything important on her, feel free to share it in the comments down below. For now, if you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you left a like and subscribe. Consider following me on Twitter, joining my Discord server, and checking out my other Why No One Plays episodes after this one. But until next time, thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.
By the way, I have this again. I mean, I still don't think it'll do well in the Abyss, but this is actually a pretty workable team, surprisingly enough. I can't get too much advantage out of the shield damage bonus that the Geo Resonance gives, because I don't have a shielder. I want Diona, but she's a goddamn lolly. And no, I can't replace Amber because I definitely need Bow. I just do. And what's up with that weird noise?
I am right by your side. But if you're still nervous, just take my hand. Peace and good health should be enjoyed by all. If I can provide everyone with a life such as this, I will be content.
Okay. I want to listen to Whims of Fate. Say what she's got is I can't find this goddamn shit. Oh, are those Denver lines? No. No, I hard to get energy from Gani. Your burst cost is only the average 60, right? Yeah. Seriously, why is Genshin so laggy? What am I doing? What's happening?
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Why No One Plays. The past two iterations were on Xinyan and Lisa, two 4-star characters, so we're gonna go back and cover a 5-star unit for today. Let's dive into the character whose name is escaping me at the moment. Oh yeah, I remember, it's Chi-Chi. Sorry, I couldn't help it, I had to make that joke at least once. If this is your first time watching a Why No One Plays episode on my channel, to all the Chi-Chi mains out there, I'd like to make it very clear this video is not a personal attack. I have no desire to admonish you or anyone for using her, nor do I believe she's an objectively bad character. The goal of the series is to discuss characters who aren't used very much by the general player base, analyzing from the perspective of those who don't use her, why she's unpopular, and hopefully try to figure out what we can do to improve or fix her gameplay. Many people tend to not be aware of the actual gameplay flaws within a character that make them quote-unquote bad. They just get told by the community that the character is bad. These videos are designed to help raise awareness of that and to see if players are willing to overcome those deficits to play them. Oh and yes, I will be going over her synergy with the Clam Artifact set, so don't worry. But before we do, I just want to give a quick shout out to our first sponsor on Vars 2. It's from good old NordVPN. As I'm sure many of you know by now, NordVPN allows you to mask your IP address whenever online using proxies, which can protect you against DDoS attacks, tracking, or the like. Also, if by chance you live in a country that restricts access to content like movies and games, you can change your virtual location to somewhere that isn't to circumvent that. This month actually marks Nord's 10-year anniversary, so they have a special gift for anyone interested. By purchasing a 2-year plan, you receive an extra month free along with a special gift of an additional month, year, or 2 years on top of your total subscription time. So if you're lucky, you can get up to 4 years for the price of 2. If you still don't have a VPN yet, I highly suggest you check out Nord using the link on screen or in the description. They have a 30-day risk-free money-back guarantee, so if you don't think you're getting your money's worth, then a free refund is waiting for you. Thanks again to NordVPN for sponsoring the video, but for now, let's get back into it. Chi-Chi's reputation in Genshin is one of disappointment. Out of the 5 permanently available 5 stars, Diluc, Keqing, Jin, Mona, and Chi-Chi, she's almost undoubtedly the one people hope they don't get. Having been power crept significantly by more modern units, they're not as good anymore, but each of them still have a purpose. Keqing and Diluc are still relatively serviceable as main DPS units if you're just starting out. Jin is an all-around solid support. She can crowd control enemies with her elemental skill, and her ultimate is a party-wide heal plus animal cleanse. She's very consistent at both too. Mona is more on the niche side, but there's no one better at amplifying vaporized reactions than her. Then there's Chi-Chi, who is also a healer. To lay down some context on the gameplay faults, I want to go through all of her talents in detail as they painfully illustrate why she's unpopular. So let's begin with her elemental skill. Adeptus Art Herald of Frost conjures what appears to be a ball of ice, dealing a small amount of cryo damage to nearby enemies before orbiting around the active character, periodically swinging around dealing repeated cryo damage for 15 seconds. During that time, the active character regenerates health, scaling based on Chi-Chi's attack. If she's the active member, her normal and charge attacks heal her party, and if you're in co-op, nearby allied players with each hit. The damage numbers aren't very substantial, but the healing isn't the worst I've seen. It's enough to keep most players topped off. There's just one thing missing. Her skill produces no energy charge, quite odd considering almost every other elemental skill uses at least a few particles. Moreover, it has an astounding 30-second cooldown. Sacrificial Sword is a must on her, unless you're one of the lucky few with a Skyward Blade. It's not really the most amazing skill I've seen. In fact, there are a lot of 4-star units with far more impactful ones than hers. A recurring theme you may notice as you continue further. Adeptus Art Preserver of Fortune is her elemental burst, a huge blast of cryo damage in an area that inflicts a talisman on anyone struck by it. Attacking a marked enemy heals the character who dealt the damage on a 1-second cooldown. Unlike her Herald of Frost, the healing from her marks is nothing short of incredible. You can easily regenerate several thousands of health with each hit. As for the damage with this ability, it's okay I guess, and the cooldown is only 20 seconds, the same as most of the supports. Okay, so the elemental skill lets her heal people, elemental burst lets her heal people, what else we got? Life prolonging methods. Elemental reactions increase her incoming healing bonus by 20% while Chi-Chi's skill is active, basically more healing. A glimpse into Arcanum. Chi-Chi's auto attacks have a 50% chance to mark an enemy with a talisman every 30 seconds, basically more healing. Healing. That's all she does. No buffs, no debuffs, just healing. It's a lot of damn healing, make no mistake. But it's just healing. Besides periodically applying cryo damage to enemies, Chi-Chi doesn't really do anything other than heal her party. By looking at her base talents alone, I'd be hard-pressed to even call her a 5-star considering she's essentially Barbara but for cryo instead of hydro. She's the dedicated healer to end all dedicated healers. Her entire kit is predicated on health regeneration, which if you remember my episode on Kokomi is not in very high demand at the moment. Genshin Impact is not a test of endurance, it's a DPS race. I sound like a broken record by now, but the game's existing content does not necessitate healing to that extent. In other words, for a healer support to be worth considering, they have to provide something that can either directly or indirectly augment a party's combat efficiency in some way, shape, or form. At the very least, serve as a battery for your team, which Chi-Chi can't even do as she doesn't generate particles with her skill or auto attacks. Perhaps her constellations can remedy this. What do we have to work with? Ascetics of Frost gives Chi-Chi 2 energy whenever Herald of Frost hits a talisman marked enemy, not the active character, just her. Frozen to the Bone increases her normal and charge attack damage against cryo-afflicted opponents by 15%. Just one thing, she's not a damage dealer, she's a support. That would be as useful as Chun-Li getting a 15% attack boost. Divine Suppression lowers the attack of marked targets by 20%. Finally, our first somewhat useful non-healing buff, except damage reduction pertains to your party's survivability, which is redundant for her because she renders your active character virtually indestructible through all her different regenerations. Now, Rite of Resurrection does have something that might be of use, especially in Spiral Abyss where the usage of curatives is forbidden. Casting her ultimate revives all fallen party members and juices them to half health. It's a 15-minute cooldown, but that's quite game-changing. No other unit has a built-in revive, I don't think.
Barbara?
Oh, wait, no, there's Max Constellation Barbara, I forgot about that. But once again, despite how situationally amazing it would be to have that, it's on a character who provides nothing but healing. No boost to your damage, no increased use of elemental reactions, no crowd control, no super armor, no elemental cleanse, absolutely nothing but healing. There is a plethora of 4-star characters well known for the supportive capabilities. Reason being is that they cover multiple bases, thus increasing their consistency. Yes, in a situation where survival is the X factor, not DPS, Chi-Chi will undoubtedly outperform anyone. She's literally the best healer in the game, no question about that. But therein lies why people would rather play anyone else but her. Healing at the moment is too situational. It's kind of like buying a $200 piping bag to put icing on your cake. It's a very handy tool if you enjoy baking, but unless you run a bakery or catering service, how often does the average person bake a cake that warrants them wanting to buy a $200 piping bag? Kokomi's shining virtue is that she's a battle healer. While sustaining her party, she can temporarily serve as a competent sub-DPS. Players who have her can attest to this. Does she carry the same power as Childe? No, but you can provide your team some much-needed sustenance without sacrificing too much DPS uptime. Even as far as healing is concerned, consistency becomes a problem. Notice how all of her different healing properties are contingent on damaging an opponent, the important heals anyway. Unlike Barbara or Jean's Burst, which is a party-wide heal on cast, Chi-Chi's Fortune Preserver doesn't actually juice up her team. This means switching between your party members one by one and getting some damage in, that's too much uptime lost. She's only able to heal each member simultaneously if she's the one doing damage. Unlike Kokomi though, she doesn't do any damage at all. To maintain your uptime while using Chi-Chi, the active member has to attack, and there's a chance they're likely already at low HP, putting them at risk of accidentally getting killed if you're not careful. Furthermore, her elemental skill cooldown is too long. Both her passive talent and skill have a 30-second cooldown, with neither aspect lasting even more than half that amount of time. Conversely, if we were to look at Jean, her Dandelion Breeze is effectively a full party heal every 20 seconds, much more consistent. She can also regenerate token amounts of health with Wind Companion just by existing, whereas Chi-Chi needs her skill active. That and Jean accumulates energy like a champ. Chi-Chi doesn't even have the means to get her elemental burst back up after she uses it. Now if you're looking for cryo application support, then Diona might as well just be a better version of her in that regard. Her signature mix is a lot like Bennett's Fantastic Voyage. By standing in a drunken mist, you continuously regenerate health, and enemies who stand in it take repeated cryo damage. Her Icy Paws also give you a shield to protect yourself even further. Additionally, what's funny is that Drunkard's Farce is essentially Chi-Chi's 4th constellation. It's 10% less attack, but you don't have to spend like $800 for 4 constellations. By no means am I implying Diona can match Chi-Chi's level of healing. But where in Genshin are you taking 30,000 damage per second? Nowhere. Her heals and shields do the job just fine. That's the same logic for every other support. Jean, Bennett, Xingqiu, they don't heal as much as Chi-Chi, but 1, they don't have to, and 2, they make up for it by doing more damage. In an action RPG hack and slash, the best defense is a strong offense. The faster you take down your opponents, the less damage they'll do to you in total. Okay, by now I'm sure many of you are pulling your hair out waiting for me to talk about her synergy with the Clam set. I'm just getting to that. For the uninitiated, Ocean-Hued Clam is an artifact set obtained in Slumberous Court, which is located on Seidai Island where you fight the Electro version of Oceanid. The 2-piece set effect grants you a simple 15% healing bonus, similar to Maiden Beloved's 2-piece. As for the 4-piece set bonus, that's where things get really interesting. When the character equipped with this set heals someone in the party, a C-dyed foam will appear for 3 seconds, accumulating the amount of total healing.
I really
So
don't
if you
get
heal
what I'm
2000
supposed to be
HP,
doing
you will
right
store
now.
2000 HP, even if the character didn't heal for 2000 HP, if that makes sense. After 3 seconds, the foam explodes, dealing damage to nearby opponents based on 90% of the stored amount, and it has a 3.5 second cooldown. You can hold up to 30,000 health per C-dyed foam, and the effect can be triggered without the equipped unit being the active member. I don't know about you, but that has Chi-Chi's name written all over it. She has virtually no active healing, her entire shtick is off-field healing, and as previously established, when it comes to strictly healing, there's no one better than her, not unless you have a decked out Kokomi, which I know very few people do, as almost no one pulled for her. To his credit, Ocean-Hued Clam solved one of the crippling issues that plagued Chi-Chi, being her non-existent damage output. 30,000 damage isn't the most, but for support it's enough to contribute several 100,000 over the course of a drawn-out fight. I haven't used it myself, but I definitely see the potential. This set was able to unlock Kokomi's potential drastically. She's quite powerful as a sub-DPS now. Unfortunately, there's a key difference between the two. Kokomi already had the potential to do good damage, she just needed a bit more, whereas Chi-Chi had no damage and now has a little.
I'm watching
you
you
can
guys.
think of it as a B student becoming an A student versus a D student becoming a C student. This grading system might sound confusing to those not in North America, but for the former, going from an 85 percentile to a 95 makes a massive difference in their academic standing. But if you average like a 65% and move up to 75, it's an improvement, but hardly anyone will think of you that differently. That's the mentality Genshin players have. Chi-Chi's damage definitely went up, but she had no damage to begin with. That clamp set is just a crutch for her, she needs it just to function in a lot of practical settings. Frankly speaking, if we exclude Aloy and Traveler, she's the worst 5-star in the game. Is she useless? No, but other characters just offer so much more. Bennett gives you healing and an attack boost, Jean gives you healing, crowd control, and animal cleanse, and if you manage to get her up to C4, you get bonus movement and attack speed as well as 40% animal resistance reduction. That's pretty serious. Diona gives you healing, shielding, more consistent cryo application, and that sweet 200 elemental mastery. Kokomi has healing and damage output, and I can't believe I'm about to say this, but even Barbara is better than Chi-Chi in a lot of instances.
Where there's like a
She gets
sword on
15%
top of his
bonus
throne
hydro
all the
damage on
time.
C2. And has the exact same revive mechanic
But like
that
his
Chi-Chi
butt,
does,
his
albeit
ass
in
was
one
glued to
person.
the chair.
But she's a 4-star, you can max constellation her in a single banner as opposed to dumping a month's rent. What really sucks about Chi-Chi is that much of her low usability stems from the fact that she's a 5-star. If she was a 4-star, I would genuinely think she'll see more play because you can max her constellation a lot more easily. Constellation 6 can come in very handy in the foreseeable future if only you could get her to that point. People don't like getting Chi-Chi off banner because they know that she's only worth investing in if you get 7 copies of her, not 2 or 3 or 4. For all intents and purposes, it's a dead pull. She doesn't get that much better from C1 to C5. Though I feel like we as the community are spoiled by all the new 5-stars. The original 5-stars have pretty lame constellations across the board in comparison to the new ones. Max Constellation Xiao breaks the game. Just by attacking 2 opponents, you get a free use of Lemniscatic Wind Cycling. Got C6 as well. She gets an instant charge level 2 aim shot just by using her E. Hell, their base forms are pretty broken, let alone their constellations. Now, I know what I said at the beginning of the video might come off as disingenuous after explaining all the reasons why there's almost no incentive to use her over any other support. The goal of Why No One Plays is to encourage players to give them a try by laying out all their flaws and then letting you decide if you're willing to put up with it for a new experience. As an answer to that, there is one possible way we can see Chi-Chi's viability go up, and that's enemy power creep. From what we've seen so far in newer iterations of Spiral Abyss, and the new areas like Inazuma and Enkanomiya, monsters are becoming more deadly. We're starting to run into situations where small healers like Bennett are not quite able to top off a team by themselves. Rift Hounds punish players for using only shields like Zhongli, so we'll eventually get to a point where a dedicated healer will soon be a requirement. I'm not sure if that'll bring Chi-Chi up to the same level of usefulness as Jean or Kokomi, but the rising concern for survivability might pose a way for dedicated healers to be future-proof to some extent. That said, she's still blatantly underpowered and needs buffs. There are 3 really major issues that should be addressed. 1. Her lack of any semblance of energy regeneration, unacceptable for her support to not be self-sustaining. 2. She has no offensive or
Can I just punch you right now?
As an example of defensive, even with the introduction of Rift Hounds, shields are still vastly better than healing since they also grant you super armor, meaning you don't get knocked back or staggered from attacks, thus indirectly boosting your damage uptime as you don't need to dodge. And 3. She has very unforgiving cooldowns. Problem 1 can be fixed by simply making her Herald of Frost generate energy on cast. That's like a basic right all Genshin characters have at this point. I fail to understand why they thought Chi-Chi shouldn't be allowed to have that. Problem 3 is also an easy one, and we can even incorporate some skill expression behind it. Perhaps have it so every time Herald of Frost damages an enemy on orbit, her skill cooldown decreases by 1 second. It swings twice, 4 times for a total of 8. Since the ability itself lasts 15 seconds and the cooldown is 30, by staying in combat for the whole duration, the effective cooldown goes from 15 seconds to 7, much more manageable. Problem 2 will be a bit more complex to fix. A lot of supports are overpowered because they do too much. We don't want to create another Bennett, and we also don't want Chi-Chi to be too similar to Diona. So instead, I'll leave it up to you guys. If you were to give any extra buffs to Chi-Chi, what would they be and where should they go? Should they passively be included in her base form or locked behind constellations? Let me know in the comments down below. But I think we're gonna end it off here for today.
I think what would be best for Chi-Chi if they really
like and subscribe.
don't want her to apply any cryo, and they don't want to give her any energy.
Episodes if you haven't yet. But for now, thank you all so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you
make
again
her
soon
burst
for the next episode.
just do what Ocean Hued Clam already does. If your characters are attacking and they're at full health, rather than healing, the mark will instead deal damage. And it can be some measly true damage as well. That's what I'd go with.
When you start a fighting game, a big portion of your efforts will be dedicated to learning your character. What are my best buttons? What do my combos look like? Which setup should I be using? But this, it doesn't last. If you want to break down the journey to becoming a great player, a big portion of your time will be spent learning matchups. For sure, you'll still be adding to the arsenal of your own character, but figuring out how the opponent works is an endless task that can only be achieved through a combination of match experience and training mode. What I want to discuss today is a tool that makes this process feel easy, and it's called Replay Takeover. But to illustrate its value, we need to start by looking at some of the difficulties that learning matchups can pose. At all levels of play, the training mode side of this equation presents difficulties that evolve as you improve. As a beginner, like for your own character, you'll be trying to figure out the buttons you're seeing them press. What's punishable? What's an overhead? It can be a process achieved in-game if you're able to fight a handful of characters enough times, but due to the nature of ranked and more generally online play, you're not typically having sustained sets versus one person and one character, just a steady flow of best of threes. A shortcut can often be going into training mode and figuring out how the button that hits you in-game works. The problem being that if you're really a beginner, you'll have to scour this new character's move list until you find what you're looking for. Not a huge issue in most games, but for sure an inconvenience, and one that's exacerbated by the size of the title's move list. When you're a mid-level player and your skill grows, so will the complexity of your opponent's offense. You'll be wrestling with small adjustments like micro dashes between buttons, reaction checks, delays, and option selects pretty quickly into your journey. It's at this point things get difficult. Situations will become far more nuanced, and you'll probably end up comboing training mode with watching your own replays, trying to absorb all the information about what
sorry, Jet. I thought you were not
too easy.
Where do you think you're going?
For Rex Lepis!
Now I am the defender of hard
access denied.
I
swear by my sword.
I appreciate on every level.
You're toast! Bubba, get them! We shall prevail!
That's the impact on learning matchups. Most games have a range of characters with varying
Next on the agenda.
execution, and this is fine. You pick at your level, or learn what's harder is
No touching! Nice and
However,
spicy!
if I'm learning to fight, say,
You're
Sato
exposed.
or Rhino, these characters are notoriously difficult in execution. So if I want to figure out how to get around their setups or even their neutral, my execution now has to be pretty damn good so I can record it in training mode and figure out the counters. It's obviously not as difficult as actually playing a character in a match, but it's pretty good.
Barbados, Goodness.
I'm right here.
Not even for the sake of your own character, which feels like a distraction.
Born of ice and frost.
And it's an issue. Even
Grant us your blessing. Flee!
Look, like I said before, A lot of these things you can learn in the game, but hours required. Focus on the same things multiple times, allowing you to explore your options versus getting a heavy training mode is miles apart. Luckily, for beginners and experts alike, Replay Takeover is a solution to these problems. One that literally every single fighting game should have. Implemented in the modern Steam release of Guilty Gear Plus R, this function is the greatest quality of life update I have ever seen. The concept is simple. When watching a match at any moment,
You get knocked around a lot.
Wait, hear me. Nice and spicy. We shall prevail. Do your work.
Don't know if something's cross up or not. Well, now you can get back in there and find it out. But not only that,
Sad. Your sacrifice is ready.
Muscle memory required to deal with every setup, every frame, every take program.
Johnny is overshadowing Shangling, honestly.
Counterweight is now at fingertips due to this remarkable function. It's
I realized too late in the year.
and knowledge checks needed in the process of labbing your opponent, which, as discussed before, are huge barriers of entry at every single level of play. Fighting games contain so many variables, and this is especially true for games that have a large vertical play space, or God forbid, a third dimension, and it can make figuring out why something did or didn't work feel near impossible using the record function. Maybe you get the correct timing on the string you got hit by, but the height could be slightly off. With Replay Takeover, however, you know that everything is exactly correct. In Plus R, you really get to see this tool operating at its full potential. The game has such rich systems, and you can see people on Twitter condensing
Everyone
hours
except
of
that guy, but he was a
optimizing
bitch anyway.
specific situations into videos, bringing out those last hits of damage that can be the difference maker. These sorts of holistic tools for improvement are so important for dragging players into our genre. Expecting the beginner to go through pages of tutorials is completely unrealistic, no matter how incredible those tutorials are. Having Replay Takeover instead, where they can go back in time and easily figure out for themselves what has gone wrong, will actually give them the knowledge needed to grow. Training mode tools are rapidly evolving, and I would love to get to a point where games can detect what you need to learn. It sees you getting clapped by dive kicks and then offers up a tutorial on how to beat them. Actually direct beginners to the strategies they need. However, that is only going to be valuable to beginners, unlike Replay Takeover, which helps everyone. And that is why, to me, it remains the greatest tool for learning fighting games that we have to offer.
What? What's happening? No! Not an invisible maze! Not really. Jesus Christ, wall of text. Thankfully, her fucking eyes are covered so they don't have to animate her crying. Please don't say that. That's pretty culturally insensitive. Yeah. I honestly was thinking Ben would die in all this. I can't believe the fucking floating D4 gets to stay. Cool, I guess the desert quest is done. What?
Is this open?
Nah.
With your sheep impression? Bah!
Beep, beep. I am a sheep. I don't think the story makes that much sense after completing the Archon quest. But oh well, that seems like a me problem, honestly. There's still more dialogue, so... Oh my god, there's too much dialogue. At least with Archon quest, they're freaking voice acted, so I don't mind showcasing them. Read these if you want, I don't give a shit. I'll read them on my own one day. That's what I always say. But I have never once gone back to watch my own recordings of Genshin. Well, actually, I've looked back at some of my card games, because I like the card game a lot. I play, strategize, and draw 2 more cards, baby. And Jet. 2 weeks later, she died from having a cold. Yes, that is a JoJo joke. That is a Joe joke. See ya. Don't close the door, I have no light.
Oh, I thought you like the darkness.
No. Do I look like some sort of edgy goth girl to you? Oh, I wish I was. A girl, I mean. Not a goth. Anyway, I'm stopping the recording right there. Right. I guess nothing's... I didn't put
Hey guys,
anything else
welcome
for
back
my...
to another
I
episode.
wanna watch more
Hey
of
guys,
these.
welcome back to another
There.
episode of Why No One Plays for Genshin. Today's character is someone I've been looking forward to talking about for a while, but since it took me so long to get to her, I